Would you like to experience Belgium and France's best breweries and pubs? Well, in this video, certified travel expert Ruth Berman will share her best Belgium and France beer tips. And be sure to check out the links in the description, as there's a ton of additional resources there. Also, stay to the end to hear Ruth's favorite beer travel experience.
For me, I always say, people first. Tell the story about what's the history behind it. The history is the people. The stories are the people. Everything you experience is because you're meeting people, whether it's the people behind the beer, the brewers, the people who work in the area, the people who work in the bars, or the people you're traveling with. You're always going to be traveling with like-minded people. And it's great because I'm seeing here, even in chat box, people that are on here are people that have become friends because they met on tours that we did. It becomes this community. And that was the one thing that attracted me to beer in the first place, was the community. Even you and I, Doug, you meet people and they're great people and we have things in common. So I think, number one, you're traveling for the people and the experience. And also nowadays, Jack, that with all the breweries we have here in the States, it's hard to get tap space. It's hard to get shelf space in the stores. So finding these beers are not so easy. So if you want to really experience the culture and the beers of a place, it's best to have them at the source. They're fresh at the source. So to experience the people, the beer, and the culture that surrounds it, to be in a place where, you know, the glassware is important to them, or there's menus full of beer and they understand beer pairing with things, that's a great experience. It's really, if you love beer, is to see it as it's seen through the eyes of the people that created that style, maybe. So I think that's why beer travel is awesome.
So Ruth, where are the top spots? It sounds like you do people watching in the top spots.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What are some of the top spots? I know you know Belgium and France better than anybody I know. It seems odd talking about beer trips in France, but let's talk about the top ones. What are the best ones?
Yeah. So the best ones are where you're having the best experience, really. But I'll say it's different for everybody. Let's start with that. Everybody has what are we looking for and what's my Mecca? But I'd say a lot of people that come on our tours, that come on a lot of beer tours, especially if it's Belgium, Trappist is always a big thing for them. We want to go to West-Lederen, we want to go to Chimay, we want to go to Orval. And these are great places. These are some really cool places. Orval, if you haven't been, is just stunningly gorgeous to see the grounds. And I always say that's my fall foliage tour. I live in Florida. We don't have that fall foliage that a lot of people do. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So yeah, so Trappist breweries are a big thing for everybody. Historic. It's in Belgium, you can think of things historically like places like Rodenbach, but you can also, and the Trappist breweries as well, but this place is Abbaye Des Rocs, which in 1979, they were the first brewery to obtain a microbrewery certification in Belgium, a license to have a microbrewery in Belgium. So there's history there. And that was a family brewery. It's the father and now the daughter is running it. And I think I have a quick picture in there, Doug, if you could pull that up. When he started back then, there wasn't a lot of brewing equipment around. And her father, Natalie's father, made brewing equipment out of washing machine. It was a washing machine. And it used to be in the basement of the house. We'd go visit when we were visiting the brewery. And there you go. And so now she took this equipment out of there and she put it into where they have the new tasting room area. And they built out a place that you can actually go do a brew day with them. So it's pretty cool. So there's looking at stuff like that. Oh, this is another thing. So so hold that thought on that picture.
That was accidental.
That's okay. As long as you have it up, I'm going to talk about these ones right here.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. So so Abbaye Des Rocs is historically, just Zola was one of the first back then in 1980, where he took over a brewery that was 100 years old. So there's history. So people are looking for places that are historic. Rodenbach is another place that's historic, and we can talk about that later, but that's a dinner we happen to do in Rodenbach between the fooders. We do this whole dinner with candelabras and beer paired, catered event. And that happened to be, that picture you pulled up was a wedding that we did there. So people are looking for, this is historic because this was the wedding. You got me sidetracked with these pictures, but the wedding, we got permission to take them into the old part of the brewery to do their wedding picture. So that's what that is from this private wedding beercation I did. But so history. So people, Trappist breweries, historic breweries, and then pubs and restaurants. Every town has places. People love the Kulminator in Antwerp, or they don't love it because they're allergic to cats like me. So I don't like to go in there too much, but amazingly long
did I hear
list.
Rodenbach is a top pick?
Rodenbach, yeah.
Hear Chimay in that list?
Chimay, yeah. Oh, Chimay. That's a good idea. Let's drink about Chimay.
All right. So I hope you will enjoy. I put together a little short video. I was there at Chimay a little over a year ago, had a lunch with Fabrice Borden, and that's who you're going to see in the short minute and a half video. And I saw some comments about cheese pairing. That's exactly what we were doing. I think that was Mark. And you'll actually be able to see my plate while I was doing more talking than I was tasting of the cheese. So look at Ruth. She's already got hers. So let's go ahead and we will kick in that video. Open mine.
Do you want the yeast deposit?
Yeah, put a little yeast on top.
You can see only on the blue label we write the year of production,
Yes.
2021. Because it's the only one interesting to age in the cellar, then to recognize the year evolution, yeah. But the blue is very interesting young, but also very interesting after 10, 15 years. Chimay Blue, 9% alcohol, 7% alcohol for the red. Of course, it's more complex. It's easy to drink, but you can feel the alcohol content, yeah. And this beer, and 55% of the yearly production of the Chimay beers, the flagship of the brand, yeah. It's one of my preferred because you can stay 30 minutes, 1 hour with your bottle and your glass.
Yes.
And each taste will give you something different.
Yes.
That's make the complexity and the good things of a very good beer, good balance. In the Chimay Blue, it's also the yellow fruit flavors, taste, but it's more prunes, marmalade, yeah. The kind of malt we use in the recipe give the flavors, the color, the alcohol content, and the flavor. More complexity, this one. It's less bitter, but it gives you more creamy flavor.
Fabrice is just such a great guy to be with. I just didn't think I could compete with that.
He's so passionate, and there's nothing like watching Fabrice pour a beer. And something I didn't mention before about why beer travels, people are also learning experience. And one of the things we did learn with Fabrice, we tasted a 16-year-old aged beer with him one time, and he talked about the blue. And what a great deal. People who are into wine, they're always cellaring their wines, but the Chimay Blue is a great beer to cellar. That's why it's called, like he said, why it's called the Grand Reserve, because you can reserve. And he said that about 5 years, it starts to really show a change in character. And pretty much like 16 years is probably where you want to stop. You want to drink it by then. It's not that much. It's here. It's available in the States. What a great beer to buy for special occasions. Put it down and lay it and save it to celebrate whatever with.
So would your first tip for a great experience be don't miss beer and cheese at Chimay?
You and I were talking about this earlier, about having that experience and being able to experience that. And you can get into the auberge where you can do the tastings. We're lucky enough that we're able to do a tour of the brewery and then have Fabrice guide us in a tasting through the cheeses and the beers. So that's nice. But my first tip for a great experience is this, Doug, research. That's my first 5 tips, are research and research. I think you need to start out with what is your bucket list? What is it you want to see? Is it Chimay? Is that there? Is it Wesleyderen? Where it is, you need to know what it is, and then you need to decide how it is you're gonna achieve that. Or are you gonna do it on your own, or do you want to go with a group? Everything has its own ways of doing things. The more you're gonna do things on your own, the more you really need to research. Look into things like, where do I want to go? How do you get there? And now that I know the directions to get there, is it open when I'm going? Is it open to visitors? Is it open for tasting? Is it open for tours? And can I even get there? And would I have to drive? Because you don't want to be driving when you want to enjoy Belgian beer. Let's face it, a lot of these Belgian beers are a little bit strong. They go down very easy. And you waited your whole life to get over there to Wesleyderen or whatever. You want to be able to enjoy those and not have to worry about driving. The alcohol limit there is lower than it is here in the States, both in Belgium and in France. And it's just not worth it. I think that's a score for going with an organized tour, or at least making sure you have a designated driver when you're going. But again, access, research, figure out where it is you want to go. Do you know how to get there? Do you know somebody? Do you know somebody over there that can help you get into places and do things? We were talking about Chimay earlier, and we're lucky enough that we're able to do tours in there, but that's not always the case for everybody. And so that may be, if that's something you want to go, maybe you want to find an organized tour, or see if you know somebody that maybe can help you get access to something. That's just really I think, key on things. There's also Belgium and France. There's days that places are open and places are closed. For example, in Antwerp, Mondays, the De Koning, the city brewery, is closed. That's a great place to visit, though, if you're staying in the town and you can take a tram there, public transportation when it's open. Public transportation. It has a self-guided brewery tour. It's fabulous.
While you're talking transportation, is a boat an option?
Yeah. So we do that's a whole different thing about the day-to-day versus the overall tour. So we do our tours on a barge in Belgium. And
Can I share your video right quick? Because people won't believe it.
Yeah. This is the happy time. This is
Now,
an early morning sail.
This is cool.
So this is just heading out of Bruges one morning. So we do a little sail before we pick up a coach to head out to where we're going. And yeah, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's really nice. Cruising on a barge is very different than an ocean cruise or even a riverboat. You can see how close we are to the side. And a lot of time we're passing farmland. Sometimes we even pass pillboxes from the war, which is cool. But this was just a beautiful, kind of calm, foggy morning. And it's awesome. And it's also nice to be on the barge because if you're somebody who doesn't like to pack and unpack, your stuff is there. We go out during the day. We either walk into the town or we take a coach to wherever we're visiting. We come back, dinner's waiting, our stuff is there. And that's something I wanted to bring up, talking about how you travel. One of the reasons a lot of people go over there, or one of the things a lot of guests do when they go over, is they pick up beer to bring home. There's beers that we can't get back here. So if you're traveling with beer, these are things you need to think about. Are you moving fairly often during your tour? Are you schlepping this stuff around with you? And how are you going to get it home? You should consider that. Are you bringing extra luggage? We've had guests throw out their clothes so they could put stuff in their suitcases. We've had guests go buy other suitcases. Shipping is not cheap from Belgium. And so a lot of people do bring it back and pay for the extra suitcase if they don't have that weight. There are suitcases that you can get that carry beer. There are ways to pack. We actually have a little article on our website called to ship or to schlep, which talks about packing up your beers. But it's something to think about, is how you travel and what you're going to do. Why are you going over there? Are you going over to bring home glassware and beers and bottles and stuff? And how much weight do you have? Can you carry home? So those are all things you need to really consider when you're planning a trip over there, regardless how you're traveling. Yeah.
So Ruth, based on your experience, and I know you've done both, I guess it's two different trips if you go either the group. Could you contrast that? Because I know it depends on what you want.
What are the experiences you're looking for? There's certain things we create on our tours, and I think every tour operator does this, is we have different ways of traveling and certain experiences that we're able to create as a result of the relationships we have and what's ideal for us, what we think is the coolest thing you can do. For example, that dinner we do in Rodenbach, that's not a cheap thing. It's an event. I have to have a certain amount of people to do it. I bring in caterers. It's a whole thing. So that's a cool thing. It's when you come home from a trip, what do you have left of those memories, the stories you're going to tell, right? Things like that you're going to get on an organized tour. If you're a biker, there's people that do bicycle tours, right? So that may be the way you want to travel. If you're going on your own, the biggest thing is you need to do that. You need to do that research in advance and say, what is it I want to do? And if you're comfortable just going with the flow, that's great. But reservations, research, look up the places you want to go. Use sources. We have a lot of sources on the internet. You give a lot of great information, Doug. Here you go. Good Beer Guide to Belgium, right? Books like this that'll tell you places to visit and things like that. What are you looking for? They're talking about shoes for packing. Here's something else to know is you need to know these certain things about brewery tours. Like certain breweries will give tours, certain breweries won't give tours, but also following even further is there's rules, there's things you need to know. You can't go, you have to dress properly. You have to have the right attire. Certain breweries won't let you in without closed-toe shoes. And you certainly don't want to, oh my God, one time we were in Duvel and there was a group from Italy. It must have been some business group. It was not, or maybe because Italy's more fashion conscious. I don't know, but there were women in dresses with high-heeled shoes climbing up and the steps with the whole, it was just, so there's things you need to think about that if you're good at doing all the research and preparing for that, great. Go on your own because then you can go with the flow you want, but research and double check things, regardless of whether you are going with a group or you are going with yourself on your own. My biggest PSA here is travel insurance because stuff happens. That's my abbreviated version of that whole thing that I can go on about hours, but especially in today's day and age. So those are my top tips and my thoughts on.
I would love to know maybe one of your most favorite beer travel experiences or places. Can you just share one short story that
Oh my God.
is your favorite?
I'm going to share a story that I wouldn't even say is like my favorite experience, but it is just a funny example of knowing people and being prepared. How's that? We visit St. Bernardus, and we've been visiting St. Bernardus since it was a tiny little, not tiny little, but much smaller than it is now, and touring through there. And we've watched it grow, like we've watched a lot of breweries grow over time. And one day we're headed over there with our group and our coach, and there's construction going on, but there's only one way to go. It's local traffic. And so we take the coach into the local traffic thing, and this big crane thing is coming with a crane that goes all the way 360 all around. And our bus driver pulls over to the side of the road to let the crane go by. The crane comes along and goes right along and cuts like the side of the bus like a can opener, not into it, but just along it. The bus driver gets out. The guy from the construction guy comes over and starts yelling at my bus driver and telling him it's his fault. He's got to call the cops. Long story short, the cops say, you have to wait there now. And I'm like, we have an appointment a kilometer down the road at St. Bernardus. We can't stay here for you to wait for the cops. Thank goodness, because I'd been working with them for so long, and I knew that people over there. I called over, and Anne was working the time in the office, and Julie, who's the CEO, Hans's daughter, Hans owns a brewery. Julie and Anne came over in their cars and brought my guests over 3 and 4 at a time in their own cars. And they're like, how's that? We have full service from the owner of the brewery bringing us over to the brewery so that we could do our tour in time while the bus driver dealt with everything. It's always good to be prepared and make sure you have contacts everywhere you're going. And yeah, and it's great. And they're all great people. And the best part of everything really is the people we meet along the road and all of our guests, the community, really.
If you've learned anything new, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and especially the notification bell. Share your best Belgium and France travel tips in the comments, because I want to hear them. Your views and comments and feedbacks help our channel out immensely. Note this is a highlights reel from a longer live event, and there's a link in the description.